Some games end when the final whistle blows. Others refuse to end at all. They live rent-free in your head for the rest of your life, replaying every single time somebody tells you a match is already decided at halftime. And if you have ever screamed at a television screen because a 2-goal deficit somehow turned into a trophy lift, this video is for you. We are breaking down 7 comebacks that had no business happening. Not the nice recovery kind. The kind where the losing side had statistical models giving them 1%. The kind where stadiums sat in silence for 80 minutes and then exploded in the last 2. The kind that changed careers, ended dynasties, and rewired what an entire generation of fans believes is possible on a football pitch. Here is the thing you need to understand before we go in. We did not rank these. There is no number 1. Every single comeback on this list was so absurd, so mathematically dead in the water, that ranking them felt like insulting the ones that finished second. Instead, we are taking you inside each one. The exact minute the tide turned. The substitution that nobody understood at the time. The tactical mistake the winning side never fully admitted. The moment on the touchline where a manager's face changed from calm to sheer panic in the space of a breath. And you are going to hear one phrase repeated across this whole video because it is the only sentence that ties all 7 of these nights together. The scoreboard is never the final word. Quick heads up. If you are watching this expecting a boring highlight reel, close the tab. We are not showing you goals. We are showing you the 15 seconds before each goal that nobody talks about. The corner that should never have been given. The center back who was standing 3 yards out of position. The keeper who committed 1 heartbeat too early. That is where the real story lives. Now, some of you are already thinking, I have seen all these games, I know what happened. Fair enough, but answer this. Do you know why the man who scored the winner in Istanbul was not even supposed to be on the pitch that night? Do you know that in one of these comebacks, the losing team's own manager admitted, years later, that he called the wrong substitution before the collapse had even started? Do you know that in another one, the analytics team of a Premier League giant gave their side a 99% win probability at the 88th minute, and then watched the entire thing unravel in 6 minutes flat? Yeah, that is exactly why you are staying. We are starting in 2019 at Anfield on a night the Barcelona bench thought was already a formality. Then we are jumping to Istanbul 2005 to the halftime team talk that Rafa Benitez never fully told the same way twice. Then Paris 2017 when Neymar delivered maybe the most complete individual performance in Champions League knockout history. Then Madrid 2022 for the 90 seconds that broke Manchester City. Then Barcelona, 1999, for the final that turned a treble into legend. Then Deportivo La Coruña, 2004, the comeback almost nobody remembers, but every tactician still studies to this day. And we are closing with the 93rd minute that stole a trophy from Atletico Madrid in the cruelest way possible. 7 nights, 7 stadiums, 7 sides that were dead on paper and refused to accept it. Before we jump in, do the channel a small favor and drop a like on this video. It genuinely helps us keep making these deep dives, and it takes you half a second. If you are new here, subscribe. We do this every single week, and we go this deep every single time. One more thing. As you watch, keep a mental note of one specific pattern. In every one of these comebacks, there is a single moment, usually somewhere between the 75th and 80th minute, where the winning side made a decision that seemed completely rational at the time. Bring on a defensive midfielder. Drop the line deeper. Kill the tempo. And in every case, that rational decision is the exact reason they eventually lost. We will flag it each time. By the end of this video, you are going to see football differently because you're going to understand that the moment a team stops trying to win and starts trying not lose, they have already lost. Alright, deep breath. We are going to Anfield. May 7th, 2019. Barcelona are 3-0 up from the first leg. Lionel Messi is at the peak of his powers. Luis Suárez is smirking on the team bus. And Jurgen Klopp has just told his players something that, on paper, made no sense at all. Let us get into it. New camp, May 1st, 2019. First leg of the Champions League semi-final. Barcelona are already thinking about the final in Madrid. You could see it in the way they warmed up. Luis Suárez, who used to wear Liverpool red before this club made him a global name, doing keepy-uppies in front of the away section as if to remind everybody who he was. Lionel Messi tapping the badge on his chest. House main Dembele finding gears he had not shown in weeks. This was going to be a routine tie. And for 90 minutes, it looked exactly like that. Suárez opened the scoring at the 26th minute against his former club. Messi finished with two of the best goals of the entire season, including a free kick from 35 yards out that Alisson simply could not read. 3-0. Second leg at Anfield. Everybody, and I mean everybody, wrote Liverpool off. The betting markets, the pundits, the algorithms, the Barcelona players themselves. Reports coming out of Catalonia later confirmed that the squad was already discussing hotel arrangements for Madrid before they had even boarded the plane back to England. Here is where the psychology of this whole thing gets interesting, because Klopp did something that almost nobody talks about. He did not treat the deficit as a mountain. He treated it as a nudge. In interviews given after the tie was over, players revealed that the manager walked into the training ground the morning after the first leg, laughed, and said something along the lines of, "Boys, they think it is over." Fantastic. That is the exact energy we need. No panic. No blackboard sessions with impossible calculations. Just a shrug and a wink. Now, remember what I told you in the opening of this video. Keep an eye on the winning side's key decision, somewhere between the 75th and 80th minute. In this match, that decision actually happens earlier than you would think, and is not even during the game itself. Is during team selection. Ernesto Valverde, Barcelona's manager, decided that Ousmane Dembele, one of the fastest counterattackers in Europe, would be dropped and that Philippe Coutinho would start on the left instead. On paper, calm and cautious. In practice, it meant Barcelona had zero pace to punish a high-pressing Liverpool defense that would inevitably leave gaps. Rational decision. Wrong outcome. We're going to keep flagging this pattern all video long. Anfield. Kickoff. 7 minutes in, and Liverpool are already ahead. Divock Origi, a squad player who at this point in the season had barely started matches of any consequence, stabs one in from close range after a Jordan Henderson shot bounced off Marc-Andre ter Stegen. 3-1 on aggregate. Still comfortable for Barcelona on paper. But something had shifted inside the crowd. There was a specific frequency in the noise that night that former Liverpool players have described in interviews as, and I am quoting one of them directly, not sound but pressure. As if the stadium itself had grabbed the ball. Barcelona tried to settle. Messi dropped deeper to find touches. Sergio Busquets started dictating tempo. And for a while it worked. The half-hour mark came, and went with the score still 1-0 on the night. Suárez had a chance he really should have taken. Coutinho tried to remind everybody why he was once a Liverpool player, and failed. Halftime came. 3-1 on aggregate. Barcelona in the away dressing room, 1/2 from the Champions League final. We are going to break for a very specific 15-second window that happens right at the start of the second half, because it is the moment this entire tie tilted. But not for the reason you think. Not the second goal. Not even the third. It is a single, unbroken passage of play that lasts 11 seconds, involves 7 Liverpool touches, and does not end a shot. It ends in a Barcelona defender collapsing to the turf, holding his hamstring. When we come back, we go inside that 11 seconds, and I show you why Klopp actually rehearsed this exact pattern in training the day before. Second half kicks off. 54th minute. Xherdan Shaqiri picks up possession on the right flank, plays a first-time ball inside to Jordan Henderson, who slips it out to Georginio Wijnaldum, who takes exactly one touch and buries it into the bottom corner. 2-0 on the night. Anfield does not react like a stadium anymore. It reacts like a single organism that just remembered it is capable of anger. Here is the detail you probably missed. Wijnaldum was not supposed to be on the pitch. He had only come on at halftime for the injured Andy Robertson. His introduction was pure necessity, not tactics. And this is what makes what happens next almost unfair. Because 2 minutes later, the same Wijnaldum, the substitute, the man who was watching from a bench when Barcelona were on top, meets a Trent Alexander-Arnold cross with a header at the far post and makes it 3-0 on the night. 3-3 on aggregate. 56 minutes on the clock. Anfield is now producing a sound that literally showed up on medical equipment in the away dressing room after the game, because 2 Barcelona backup staff members reported ear ringing that lasted for hours. Now Barcelona had a decision to make. And this is the moment I flagged at the top of the video. Is somewhere around the 75th minute. Valverde has options. Bring on Dembele for pace on the counter. Bring on Malcolm for width. Reinforce midfield to slow the tempo. He chooses to bring on Nelson Semedo, a defender. In a game his team has to score into progress. Not because Barcelona are behind on aggregate, but because they are being suffocated and they need to break the press with quick vertical passing, which requires attackers, not fullbacks. Rational decision on paper. Kill the game. Wrong outcome. Because at the 79th minute, the moment happens. Trent Alexander-Arnold walks over to take a corner on the right. Barcelona's back line begins to organize. Messi turns his back to the ball for a second to shout instructions. And Trent, instead of resetting the ball like everyone expects, sees Dudek Origi standing alone at the front post because the Barcelona defense has not finished setting up. He pretends to walk away. Then he pivots, whips it low and hard into the 6-yard box, and Origi arrives with the entire stadium behind him and side-foots it into the roof of the net. 4-0. 4-3 on aggregate. 79 minutes. Watch the Barcelona bench in that clip. Watch Suárez's face specifically. He does not react like a man losing a football match. He reacts like a man watching a car accident he has already been in. Vacant, blinking, slowly turning his head, hoping the referee is going to disallow it. He does not. The goal stands. Anfield turns into something that is not really a stadium anymore for the last 10 minutes of that game. It is a noise that people who were there still describe as, and I am quoting one of them directly, physically impossible to describe to someone who was not. Full time. 4-0 Liverpool. 4-3 on aggregate. Barcelona, who came in with Messi at his peak, with the reigning Ballon d'Or winner, with the treble in their sights, gets sent home from a semi-final in which they scored 3 goals and lost. The image of Messi sitting on the turf, arms wrapped around his knees, staring at nothing, became one of the defining photographs of the decade. Because in that photograph, you are looking at football itself telling its greatest player, not tonight. Klopp's Liverpool went on to lift the trophy in Madrid a few weeks later, beating Tottenham in the final. But every single player from that Liverpool squad, when asked about their favorite memory from that season, does not mention Madrid. They mention Anfield. May 7th, the night the scoreboard, once again, was not the final word. We are jumping 14 years back now. Different stadium, different continent, different sport almost, because what you are about to see is not just a comeback. It is the single greatest halftime tactical shift in the history of European football. Istanbul, May 25, 2005, and a team that was already being written off as the worst finalist in Champions League history. Istanbul, Ataturk Olympic Stadium, May 25, 2005, Champions League final. Liverpool versus AC Milan. Before we get to what happened, let me give you the context, because context is everything in this comeback. It is what makes it feel biblical. Liverpool had barely qualified for this competition. They had scraped fourth in the Premier League the previous season. They had beaten Chelsea in the semi-final on a ghost goal from Luis Garcia that to this day is one of the most argued moments in Champions League history. Their squad was, by any honest measure, the least talented Liverpool team to reach a European final in a decade. Rafa Benitez was in his first season in charge. Everybody who could hold a pen wrote off Liverpool's chances. Milan, on the other hand, were the actual best team in the world. Not one of the best. The best. Paolo Maldini, 36 years old and still the most complete defender on the planet. Alessandro Nesta beside him. Cafu on the right. Jaap Stam behind him in reserve, Gennaro Gattuso and Andrea Pirlo controlling midfield, Kaká between the lines, Shevchenko and Crespo up front. Just read that team sheet again. Read it slowly. That is not a football team. That is a museum exhibit. Odds before kickoff had Milan as heavy favorites, and the truth is, watching the first 45 minutes, the bookmakers looked kind. Kickoff. 50 seconds in. Andrea Pirlo delivers a free kick from the left. Paolo Maldini, who at this point has been playing top-level football since Ronald Reagan was president of the United States, arrives at the back post and volleys it in like a striker. Milan 1, Liverpool 0. 50 seconds. Liverpool have not even touched the ball in the Milan half yet. Now here is where the psychology of the losing side starts to matter. Liverpool did not fall apart. They kept trying to play. They tried to press. They tried to move the ball. But every time they built up, Milan's midfield was 5 seconds ahead of them. Pirlo was dictating the entire tempo of the match from standing position. Kaká was ghosting between the lines. And the numbers tell you the story. In that first half, Kaká alone completed 18 forward passes into the final third. 18. In one half. From one player. That is a statistic that in modern football would win a man the Ballon d'Or. He did it in 45 minutes. At the 39th minute, Kaká plays a through ball to Crespo. Crespo finishes cool. 2-0. At the 44th minute, Kaká plays another through ball to Crespo. Crespo dinks it over Dudek. 3-0. Half-time. Liverpool trudged off the pitch to a scoreline that felt, in that moment, more like a mercy killing than a football match. Milan's players walked to the tunnel with the game essentially over. Multiple Milan players confirmed in interviews years later that the mood in their dressing room at halftime was, and again I am directly quoting one of them, already at the celebration. Some of them were laughing. Some were talking about the after-party. Paolo Maldini reportedly told the group to stay serious, but the tone had shifted. This game, for them, was won. In the Liverpool dressing room, Rafa Benitez was doing something that has been retold so many times, with so many contradicting versions, that no two players remember it exactly the same way. Some say he wrote a new formation on the whiteboard. Some say he screamed. Some say he was eerily calm. Some say he had already written Šmicer's substitution, and then crossed it out the last moment because Steve Finnan reported he could not continue. What everybody agrees on is this. Benitez switched to a three-man defense at halftime, added a midfielder, and told the team one specific thing. Score in the first 15 minutes of the second half. If they scored one, he told them, Milan would panic. If they did not, the game was over. 15 minutes. That was the entire plan. Score in 15 minutes or go home. They needed 9. Second half kicks off. 54th minute. John Arne Riis swings in a cross from the left, and Steven Gerrard, in the exact posture he made a career out of, meets it with a header that goes past Dida and into the corner. 3-1. Gerrard turns to the crowd and screams, arms outstretched, demanding more. The Liverpool section responds. Something shifts. Milan sense it immediately. 2 minutes later, 56th minute, Vladimir Šmicer, a substitute who had barely played a full game all season, picks up the ball 25 yards out. He does not shape to shoot. He does not fake. He just hits it. First time. Low. Skidding. Dida gets a hand to it, but it slides underneath him and into the corner. 3-2. Liverpool. I want you to pause on this moment for a second because this is the exact instant Milan lost the game. Not the third goal. The second. Because Milan's body language, from the moment Šmicer's shot hit the net, changes on tape. Watch it back. Cafu stops sprinting into overlaps. Gattuso's tackles start being one step late. Pirlo drops 30 yards deeper without any instruction to do so. This is what happens when a professional team's confidence breaks in real time. It does not look like panic. It looks like sleep. They slow down. Just slightly. Just enough. 60 minutes. Steven Gerrard runs onto a through ball into the box and is clipped from behind by Gennaro Gattuso. Penalty. Xabi Alonso, whose calmness under pressure is a documented psychological trait that scientists could probably study, steps up and buries it low. Except Dida saves it. The stadium gasps. And then Alonso, calm as ever, arrives before anyone else on the rebound and hits it into the roof of the net on the second attempt. 3-3. 6 minutes. Milan have conceded 3 goals in 6 minutes. In a Champions League final. In a game they were leading 3-0. Now, here is the moment I flagged at the top of this video. Because Carlo Ancelotti, arguably one of the 10 greatest managers in football history, makes a decision somewhere around the 78th minute that even he later admitted was a mistake. He does not go for a fourth. He does not throw on a fresh attacker to punish a Liverpool defense that is on its last legs. He drops Milan deeper, tries to hold the score, and hopes the game reaches extra time still level, then wins it late. Rational on paper. Milan are the better team, the fresher squad. They have Shevchenko in reserve. Just survive to the 61st minute of extra time and win it there. Wrong decision, because dropping deeper handed Liverpool's midfielders exactly what they wanted. Space, time, air. Milan spent the last 20 minutes of normal time trying not to lose, and Liverpool spent them trying to win. Extra time. Both teams exhausted beyond description. Andriy Shevchenko, who is probably the best striker in the world at the time, has a header saved by Jerzy Dudek from 3 yards out that immediately entered folklore. Dudek gets down. Shevchenko heads it back. Dudek somehow, from a horizontal position, reaches up and deflects the follow-up over the bar with a wrist. Milan's bench falls silent. If that goal goes in, Milan lift the trophy. It does not. Ancelotti later called it, the moment football turned its back on us. Penalties. Dudek pulls out the ghost of Bruce Grobbler and wobbles his legs on the line for every kick. It sounds funny. It is deadly. Serginho misses. Pirlo misses. Shevchenko, the man who should never miss, walks up to take Milan's last kick with the tie on his boot and hits it straight down the middle. Dudek dives, sticks up a hand, and the ball hits it. Save. Liverpool are champions of Europe. Rafa Benitez walked to the trophy podium expressionless. Some interpreted it as shock. Those closer to him later said it was something different. It was a manager who had made a plan at halftime, told his team 15 minutes was the window, and watched them execute the plan in 6. He was not shocked. He was, in some strange way, confirmed. That halftime team talk is still taught in coaching seminars 20 years later. We move to Paris now. Different sport, again, because what happens on March 8, 2017 is not a football match. It is a single individual performance from a single individual player that even people who dislike him openly admit was the most complete European knockout display in the modern era. Barcelona versus Paris Saint-Germain. 6 goals. And a night that changed one man's career and one club's future forever. February 14, 2017. Parc des Princes. First leg of the Champions League round of 16. Paris Saint-Germain versus Barcelona. On paper, the tie of the round. In practice, it turned into a demolition. Angel Di Maria scored twice. Julian Draxler added another. Edinson Cavani wrapped it up. 4-0 to Paris. And Barcelona, at the peak of the MSN era, of Messi, Suárez and Neymar, walked off the pitch looking genuinely broken. Some reports out of Barcelona in the days after the first leg suggested that Luis Enrique's job was already being discussed internally. In the 90-year history of Champions League and European Cup football combined, no team had ever come back from a 4-0 first-leg deficit in the knockout stages. 0. Nobody. Not one time. The math simply had not allowed it in 90 years of the tournament's history. And then Neymar posted on Facebook. Yes, Facebook. This was 2017. 99% faith and 1% chance. Nobody took it seriously. In the studios, the pundits laughed. In Paris, the players packed for the second leg, like tourists. Unai Emery was reportedly already discussing his lineup for the quarter-final. That was the state of mind entering the return match. Confidence bordering on complacency. March 8th. Camp Nou. Kickoff. 3rd minute, Luis Suárez heads in from a corner. 1-0. 44th minute, Layvin Kurzawa deflects a Neymar cross past his own keeper. 2-0. Halftime. 2-0 on the night. 4-2 on aggregate. Still not enough. But Camp Nou has started to smell something. 50th minute, Andrés Iniesta wins a penalty. Lionel Messi steps up, holds his gaze, and buries it. 3-0 on the night. 4-3 on aggregate. Away goals rule still active in 2017, so PSG were technically fine on any draw, but the pressure had turned into something visible. Cameras on the Paris bench show players wiping sweat that has nothing to do with heat. 62nd minute. Edinson Cavani, in a moment nobody in Paris talks about anymore, latches onto a poor Barcelona clearance, controls, and blasts it in from an impossible angle. 3-1. Aggregate 5-3. Barcelona now need 3 goals in 28 minutes. In the 90-year history of European club football, this exact scenario had also never been overcome. So we are compounding 2 impossibilities on top of each other. Now, the moment I keep flagging. Around the 75th minute. Unai Emery makes his substitution call. Instead of bringing on a fresh striker to hold up play and eat the clock, he brings on Meunier for Draxler. Defensive-minded. Kill the game. Rational on paper. Wrong outcome. Because Barcelona now had a settled shape to attack, no counter-threat to worry about, and 13 minutes of freedom. 88th minute. Free kick, 25 yards out. Neymar stands over it. And what he does in this moment is why, whether you love him or hate him, you cannot argue with what he was that night. He curls it over the wall into the top corner. Kevin Trapp does not move. 4-1. Aggregate 5-4. 90 seconds later, Suárez tumbles in the box in a moment where, we are being honest, no penalty was there. But the referee gives it. Neymar buries it. 5-1 on the night. Aggregate 5-5. Away goals still favor Paris, but the noise inside Camp Nou by now had lost meaning as a sound. 92nd minute. Injury time. Neymar takes possession 30 yards from goal, floats a ball into the box that is not really a cross, is a personal delivery to Sergi Roberto, a converted midfielder who has no business being in that position, and Sergi Roberto stretches his right leg and pokes it past Trapp. 6-1. The impossible was over. Camp Nou did not react like a stadium. Camp Nou reacted like a religion. That moment is still played in Barcelona at every home match as a reminder of what belief can do, in a sport where belief and mathematics are supposed to obey the same laws. That night rewired what football fans considered possible. And, in an almost cruel twist, it also destroyed the club that had performed it. Because 6 months later, Paris Saint-Germain paid €222 million to buy Neymar off Barcelona, in a transfer that only made financial sense to a club that had watched him personally destroy them one time too many. But we are not staying in Paris. Because 5 years later, another Spanish team was going to do to Manchester City exactly what Barcelona did to PSG. Except this time, it would take 90 seconds, not 30 minutes. Bernabéu, 2022. And a young Brazilian named Rodrygo goes. April 26, 2022. Etihad Stadium. Semi-final, first leg. Manchester City versus Real Madrid. City are, at this point, the best drilled tactical machine on the planet. Pep Guardiola has spent 5 years assembling a squad specifically designed to dominate possession in every phase of the pitch. Kevin De Bruyne is at the peak of his powers. Bernardo Silva is playing the most complete football of his career. Riyad Mahrez has just found top form. And Real Madrid, on paper, are old. Luka Modric is 36. Karim Benzema is 34. Toni Kroos is 32. This was supposed to be a mismatch. And for large portions of that first leg, it looked exactly like that. Manchester City opened the scoring inside 2 minutes. De Bruyne headed in from a Mahrez cross. They added a second through Gabriel Jesus at 11 minutes. It was already 2-0, and it should have been more. Phil Foden had a shot cleared off the line. De Bruyne missed a header from 6 yards. City had absolutely everything, except a scoreline that matched their dominance. Benzema, in an act of stubbornness that would define the entire tie, pulled one back with a header from a Ferland Mendy cross. 2-1. Then De Bruyne fed Foden, who made it 3-1. City going comfortable. And then Vinicius Jr., running from his own half, tore through the entire City defense and finished with a chip. 3-2. Then Benzema, penalty. 3-3. Then Bernardo Silva, absolute belter from 25 yards. 4-3. Then Benzema, Panenka penalty. 4-3 still. Full time. The first leg ended in an 8-goal thriller. Now everybody talks about the second leg, but you cannot understand what happened at the Bernabéu without understanding what the first leg did to both teams psychologically. City had scored 4 goals. Away from home. Against Real Madrid. And still only had a 1-goal cushion. That is the kind of statistic that eats at a squad on the flight home. On the other side, Real Madrid had lost, but they had also proven to themselves that this City team could bleed. They had made them concede 3. At the Etihad. In a Champions League semi-final. Second leg. May 4th. Santiago Bernabéu. And for 89 minutes of that match, City are the better side. Let me repeat that, because it is important. For 89 minutes of the second leg, in a semi-final at the Bernabéu, Manchester City look like the eventual finalists. They have more possession. They have more shots on target. They have more expected goals. They score first through Riyad Mahrez in the 73rd minute, which puts the aggregate at 5-3 in their favor with less than 20 minutes to play. On any statistical model in existence, that game was over. Real Madrid's win probability at the 88th minute of that game was measured live by multiple analytics providers. Every single one of them, without exception, showed the same number. 1%. That is not a rounding error. That is a calibrated statistical output. 1%. That is where Real Madrid stood in a Champions League semi-final, 3 minutes from being eliminated by the tactical superpower of the modern game. And this is where the pattern I keep telling you to watch for happens in its purest, most concentrated form of the entire video. Guardiola makes a decision around the 78th minute. He substitutes off João Cancelo, one of his most creative outlets, and brings on Fernandinho, a defensive midfielder. In a match his team is winning by only 1 goal on aggregate, and he shifts the shape to protect what they have. Rational on paper. Kill the game. Nobody watching that substitution live criticized it. 0 pundits questioned it in real time. It was tactically the sober call. It was also the exact call that lost Manchester City the semi-final. Because in the 89th minute, Ancelotti, who has now appeared in this video 3 times because his career has been shaped by moments like this, makes his own substitution. Rodrygo comes on. And what happens in the next 60 seconds is one of the 2 or 3 most impossible sequences in the modern history of European football. 90th minute. Real Madrid have a corner. Bernabéu is roaring, but nobody in the stadium actually believes there is time. Not in the way you believe a comeback is coming when it is minute 65. This is minute 90. There is not enough game left. The corner comes in, is cleared, but is cleared to Camavinga, who plays it back into the box to Benzema, who has his back to goal, and Benzema flicks it on with the outside of his heel, into the path of Rodrygo. Rodrygo takes one touch to set himself and buries it low into the corner. 1-1 on the night. 5-4 on aggregate. 90 minutes played. Now watch the City bench in that moment. Watch Guardiola specifically. There's a look on his face that is not shock. It is a look of, I know what is coming next. Because in the 3 seconds between the ball hitting the net and Real Madrid's players sprinting back to the halfway line, the entire Manchester City staff bench realizes what has just happened. They still have the aggregate lead, but the game has moved into a physics that does not obey them anymore. Kickoff. 90+1. Marco Asensio picks up the ball on the left, drifts down the byline, and cuts a cross back into the 6-yard box. There is one City defender caught between 2 runners. He takes half a step to intercept the near post option. Rodrygo, running from the back post, meets the cross with a header that grazes the underside of the bar and drops in. 2-1 on the night. 5-5 on aggregate. 90+1 minute. Rodrygo has scored twice in 90 seconds. In a Champions League semi-final. Against the best drilled defensive machine in football. From a 1% win probability. Bernabéu becomes a physical event. Extra time. Second minute of extra time. Ruben Dias fouls Benzema in the box. Penalty. Benzema walks over to Rodrygo before taking it and in a moment captured by every camera in the stadium, offers him the ball. Rodrygo declines. The 19-year-old kid, who is having the greatest 90 seconds of his professional life, defers to the man who is on his way to a Ballon d'Or. Benzema places the ball on the spot, takes a short run, and side-foots it into the bottom corner. 3-1 on the night. 6-5 on aggregate. Real Madrid, from 1% win probability at the 88th minute, are 5 minutes from a Champions League final. They see it out. Manchester City walk off in a state that City fans have described in the years since as, and again, I am directly quoting one of them, not defeat. Erasure. Because it is one thing to be beaten. It is another thing to have your best game plan executed for 89 minutes and lose anyway. This was, statistically, one of the best team performances Manchester City had produced across 2 legs of any Champions League tie in the entire Pep Guardiola era. It was also an elimination. Football does not care how well you played. Football only cares how far you got. Real Madrid then went to Paris and beat Liverpool in the final. Vinicius Jr. scored the winner. Thibaut Courtois produced maybe the greatest goalkeeping performance in a Champions League final ever, and Real lifted their 14th European Cup. But every single Real Madrid player and staff member, when asked about their favorite night of that campaign, does not say Paris. They say the Bernabéu. May 4th, the 90 seconds that broke Manchester City. There is a specific pattern that shows up in this comeback that I want you to notice, because it will come back again in our next story. In every one of the comebacks we have looked at so far, the winning side did not just get lucky. They had already proven, in some prior match or prior context, that they could bleed the losing side. Liverpool had beaten Barcelona at Anfield in previous seasons. Real Madrid had scored 3 at the Etihad. Belief in these moments is not conjured out of nothing. Is memory. Is a player standing on the touchline and remembering that he has already seen this exact defender misstep in a previous match. That is what these comebacks share. Is not miracle. Is memory acting as courage. Which brings us to Barcelona. May 26, 1999. Camp Nou, Catalonia. Champions League final. Manchester United versus Bayern Munich. And the 3 most consequential minutes of Alex Ferguson's entire career. To understand why Manchester United versus Bayern Munich in May 1999 mattered so much, you have to understand the season Alex Ferguson had already had by that point. His United side had just won the Premier League title. 10 days before this final, they had won the FA Cup. If they beat Bayern Munich in Barcelona, they would become the first English club in history to win the treble. Not one of the most rare achievements in the sport. The most rare achievement in the sport. No English side had ever done it. Nobody was sure it was even structurally possible in the modern era, given the fixture congestion. Bayern Munich, on the other hand, were the machine of European football at that moment. They had gone through the group stage without losing. They had eliminated Kaiserslautern in the quarters and Dynamo Kiev in the semi-final. Their squad was full of experienced European campaigners. Oliver Kahn in goal at his terrifying peak. Lothar Matthäus captaining the midfield. Stefan Effenberg pulling strings. Mario Basler with a vision. Karsten Janker up top, and a young substitute named Mehmet Scholl waiting on the bench. Manchester United, meanwhile, entered the final without their two starting central midfielders. Roy Keane was suspended. Paul Scholes was suspended. Alex Ferguson, on the biggest night of his managerial career, was missing the two players who defined his midfield's identity. To compensate, he moved David Beckham inside from the right wing to central midfield and pulled Ryan Giggs across from left. It was on paper a broken lineup being held together with tape. Camp Nou, Barcelona. 90,000 people. Kickoff. 6th minute. Mario Basler steps up to take a free kick from just outside the box. Peter Schmeichel, United's talismanic goalkeeper, who had already announced this would be his last game for the club, is left flat-footed. The ball curls over the wall and into the corner. Bayern 1, United 0. 6 minutes played. And for the next 80 minutes, Manchester United do not play well. That has to be said. This is not one of those comebacks where the losing side is dominant but cannot score. This is a comeback where the losing side actually plays poorly for the majority of the match. Bayern hit the woodwork twice. Once through Scholl, chipping the goalkeeper, only to see it come off the post. Once through Janker, an overhead kick that thundered off the underside of the crossbar. If either of those goes in, this game is finished. It is remembered as a masterclass by Bayern and the troubled eyes at Camp Nou. But football, as we keep repeating in this video, does not care what should have happened. It cares what actually happens. And what actually happens is a series of small compounding moments that build toward a moment nobody in that stadium is ready for. Alex Ferguson makes a substitution at the 67th minute. He brings on Teddy Sheringham, a striker known for arriving in the box late, not one who leads the line. Then, 10 minutes later, he brings on Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, a 26-year-old Norwegian who had spent the entire season as a super sub. Neither substitution is dramatic. Neither is treated as tactically interesting by the commentary team at the time. They are described live as throwing bodies forward, hoping for something. Bayern Munich, on the other side, make the exact decision I keep flagging in this video. Somewhere between the 75th and 80th minute, Ottmar Hitzfeld, their manager, brings off Matthias, their captain and leader. He replaces him with Torsten Fink. He does the same with Basler, replacing him with Salihamidzic. Both substitutions are, in isolation, defensible. Both are meant to bring in fresh legs to see out a one-goal lead in a Champions League final. Rational on paper. Both were also, in retrospect, the moment Bayern Munich stopped trying to win the football match and started trying to protect a lead. The Bayern players who lived through that match have said in the years since that the moment Matthias came off, the team's shapes stopped being aggressive. That energy shift, invisible to the naked eye at the time, is what Manchester United fed on for the final 10 minutes. Full time approaches. Fourth official's board goes up. 3 minutes of stoppage time. 3 minutes. That is all the game has left. And Manchester United are still trailing 1-0. Bayern Munich's players are already receiving the trophy ribbons being tied to the Champions League handles on the sideline. The FIFA official press releases had been pre-drafted. History on paper has already been written. Then, 90 plus 1 minute, Manchester United win a corner. 90 plus 1 minute. David Beckham stands over the corner on the left. Peter Schmeichel, the goalkeeper, sprints the length of the pitch and joins the box. Ferguson has told him earlier in the week that if a moment came, he had permission to gamble. This is that moment. The corner is delivered short, worked to Ryan Giggs, who hits a shot from 12 yards out. It squirms toward the front post. Teddy Sheringham, arriving late in his signature style, sticks out a right foot and pokes it home from 6 yards. 1-1. 90 plus 1 minute. Camp Nou explodes. And Bayern Munich, who 10 seconds earlier were preparing to receive the trophy, have to walk back to the halfway line and prepare for extra time. Watch Oliver Kahn in that clip. Watch him closely. There is a moment, right after he picks the ball out of his own net, where he holds it and stares at nothing. Not at the crowd. Not at his defenders. Just at nothing. It is the look of a man realizing that the game he thought he had won has just been repossessed. Kickoff. Bayern try to keep it. Effenberg loses possession. Manchester United win another corner. Beckham stands over it again. 90 plus 3 minutes. This is the moment. This is what 50,000 English travelers at Camp Nou and untold millions watching on television around the world would carry for the rest of their lives. Beckham swings the ball in from the left. Sheringham rises above his marker and heads it down toward the near post. And Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, who has been on the pitch for exactly 12 minutes, stretches out his right foot and lifts the ball over Kahn and into the roof of the net. 2-1, 90 plus 3 minutes. Manchester United score 2 goals in 180 seconds and win the Champions League. Alex Ferguson delivers the line that will define the last quarter century of English football journalism. Football. Bloody hell. The Bayern Munich players collapse to the turf. Some of them, on camera, cover their faces with their shirts. Sammy Cuffer, one of their central defenders, drops face first onto the pitch and beats the grass with his fists in a moment that has been played in slow motion in football documentaries in every language spoken on earth. Because he is not just losing a Champions League final. He is losing it in the 93rd minute after leading for the entire match. It is not a defeat. It is a bereavement. Manchester United complete the treble. First English club in history. It is done. And the pattern I have been telling you about all video, that moment between the 75th and 80th minute when the winning side stops trying to win, is written into the DNA of that final so obviously that you cannot unsee it once you know to look. Matthias off. Basler off. 2 substitutions to protect a 1-goal lead in a game where they were dominant. Both substitutions, viewed decades later by every serious tactical analyst who's looked at the tape, are the moment Bayern lost the trophy. Not the corners. Not Sheringham. Not Solskjaer. The moment they decided to protect what they had instead of extending it. There is a beautiful quote from Alex Ferguson about the mentality of the players he had on the pitch that night. He said decades later that the difference between his United and the Bayern of that era was not tactics. It was not fitness. It was, in his exact words, our lads refused to accept that anything was over until the man in black blew his whistle. That single sentence should be tattooed on the arm of every young football player learning the sport, because it is the phrase, more than any other, that summarizes what this entire video is about. Refusing to accept that anything is over until somebody officially tells you it is. Which is exactly how we ended up with our next comeback. A tie so absurd that even tactical analysts decades later still teach it as a case study in how a team can play a perfect first leg and then get dismantled in a way that has nothing to do with tactics and everything to do with belief. We are heading to Spain now. A small city on the Atlantic coast. April 7, 2004. And a club that at the time was one of the best-run operations in European football, taking on the most decorated European club of the previous half-decade. Deportivo La Coruña versus AC Milan. Champions League quarterfinal. March 24, 2004. San Siro. First leg of the Champions League quarterfinal. Deportivo La Coruña, at that point one of the most respected teams in Spain, walk into the theater of Italian football and get comprehensively taken apart. Kaká scored. Shevchenko scored twice. And while Deportivo pulled one back through Walter Pandiani, the final score of 4-1 to Milan was a fair reflection of the game. Milan were the reigning European champions. They had a defense that had conceded fewer goals than any team in the tournament that year. They were, at that moment in time, the closest thing to an unbeatable side in club football. When they walked off the San Siro pitch with a 3-goal cushion, the tie was, by any reasonable measure, over. No team had ever, in the history of the Champions League up to that date, come back from a 3-goal deficit in the knockout stages. The prior record for a European comeback in a knockout tie was 2 goals, and even that had happened only a handful of times. 3 was statistically, mathematically, and psychologically outside the boundary of what was considered possible. Milan's traveling squad arrived in La Coruña for the second leg treating it, and I say this with confirmation from later interviews with the players as a formality. Some Milan first-team players did not fly. Silvio Berlusconi, then owner of the club, was reportedly already in Portugal scouting stadiums for the final. This is not an exaggeration. This is documented behavior from a football club that believed it had already advanced. April 7th. Riazor Stadium, La Coruña. Kickoff. 5th minute. Corner to Deportivo. Walter Pandiani, in a moment that most casual football fans do not remember, but is one of the most consequential single goals in Champions League history, gets his head to it and buries it. 1-0. Aggregate 2-4. Nobody in Milan panics. Is still a 2-goal cushion with 85 minutes to play. The tie is still, on paper, comfortable. 19th minute. Juan Carlos Valleran, Deportivo's genius playmaker, picks up possession 30 yards out, and with a first-time flick that only he and that entire squad had the vision to see, delivers the ball to Juan Carlos Valleran. Sorry, let me rephrase that. Valleran delivers the ball into the path of Victor, who arrives at the back post for a tap-in. 2-0 on the night. Aggregate 3-4. And now Milan look nervous. 35th minute. Cross into the box. Fran, a Deportivo captain, and one of the most technically gifted midfielders of his generation, arrives at the back post and heads it in. 3-0 on the night. Aggregate 4-4. Away goals rule active. Milan are eliminated if the game ends here. And there is still 55 minutes to play. The Milan dressing room at halftime is described in the subsequent memoirs and interviews of Milan players who lived through it as, and I am directly quoting a member of that squad, silence I have never heard again in a football dressing room. No screams. No tactical instructions. Just Carlo Ancelotti, the same man who was on the winning end in Istanbul the following year, walking around and asking his players simple questions. What is happening? Where is Cafu? Why is Kaká getting cut off from the box? Nothing helps. Because in the 76th minute, in a moment that must be highlighted specifically for the pattern I have been tracking in this video, Deportivo strike for the fourth. A clearance falls to Fran on the edge of the box. He controls it once, chops inside, and slots it low across the goalkeeper. 4-0. Deportivo eliminate AC Milan, the reigning European champions, 4-0 on the night. The largest single-leg goal margin ever suffered by a defending champion in Champions League knockout play up to that point. The Milan press corps would travel to Spain expecting to file celebratory copy about a comfortable progression, filed the most stunned tactical post-mortems of the entire year. Now, the specific pattern I keep flagging. Milan, at 80 minutes, did not make the substitution to bring Shevchenko fully into attack. They tried to hold. They tried to salvage the away goal that would send them through. Rational on paper. Wrong outcome. Because this Deportivo side, in the atmosphere of the Real, in front of a crowd that could smell an upset from 90 miles away, was not going to be held. They needed one more. They got it in the 76th. And Deportivo, on the strength of that single result, made the semifinals of the Champions League for the only time in their history. They lost to Porto in the next round. Porto went on to win the tournament under Jose Mourinho. But that one result at the Real, 4-0 against reigning European champions, is still cited as the greatest single leg in Deportivo's history. And every serious tactical historian of European football will tell you the same thing. That leg is a case study in what happens when a superior team stops respecting an opponent. It is not tactical, is not physical, is psychological, and it is fatal. Which brings us to the seventh and final comeback of this video. The one you already know the ending to. And yet, the details of the 89 minutes before the 93rd minute header are worth going through one more time because they explain not just how Real Madrid stole a Champions League final from Atletico in 2014, but how that one goal shaped an entire decade of Real Madrid dominance in European football. Lisbon, May 24, 2014. The 2014 Champions League final in Lisbon was, before it began, a story about a city and a rivalry. Real Madrid and Atletico Madrid, the two clubs that share a metro system, playing for the biggest trophy in European club football at the Estadio de Luz. Real Madrid chasing La Decima, their 10th European Cup, an obsession that had defined the club's entire identity for over a decade of near misses. Atletico Madrid, having just won La Liga under Diego Simeone in one of the most remarkable domestic campaigns of the modern era, chasing their first European Cup ever. Neither side had lost a Champions League match at home that season. Both had beaten Barcelona in the knockout stages. It was structurally the most balanced final in years. 36th minute. Corner to Atletico. Ball comes in. Gareth Bale challenges. Iker Casillas comes off his line and dramatically misses, and Diego Godin arrives at the back post to head it into an empty net. Atletico 1, Real Madrid 0. Simeone, on the touchline, does not celebrate. He immediately signals to his players to drop deeper, tighten the lines, and begin what he'd spent the entire season perfecting. The art of protecting a lead. The next 57 minutes of that football match are as ugly and physical as any Champions League final in the modern era. 12 yellow cards were handed out. Every 50-50 ball turned into a fight. Simeone's Atletico, once ahead, transforms into a five-man defensive block that Real Madrid cannot break down. Cristiano Ronaldo, who had had one of the greatest individual seasons in his career, is barely getting any touches inside the box. Karim Benzema is being marked by two center-backs at all times. Angel Di Maria, running down the wings, is being kicked. Repeatedly. Legally and sometimes not. Atletico's approach is working. In the 87th minute, the tie is still 1-0. The Champions League trophy is being prepared with a red and white ribbon. La Decima is dying. 90 plus 3. 90 plus 3 minutes on the clock. Corner to Real Madrid. Nobody in that stadium, not the Real Madrid players, not the Atletico players, not the neutral fan watching from a bar in Argentina, gives Real Madrid a real chance to score. Luka Modric stands over the ball on the right. Simeone is already thinking about his substitutions for extra time because he has no intention of letting Real Madrid keep the ball in dangerous areas long enough to score. And this is the moment. The moment I have been flagging all video. Right at the very end of the 90, Simeone has, over the previous 15 minutes, brought his defensive block 10 yards deeper. Rational on paper. Kill the game. Wrong outcome. Because that 10 yards is exactly the space that Sergio Ramos, arriving from deep, needs to attack the ball. Modric delivers the corner. Ramos comes running from 12 yards behind the front post, times his jump so perfectly that Atletico's marker cannot get body on him, and thunders a header down into the corner of the net. Thibaut Courtois, then a young Atletico goalkeeper who would go on to lose to Real Madrid several more times before eventually joining them, does not move. 1-1. 90 plus 3 minutes. La Decima is alive. Watch Diego Simeone in that clip. Watch him walk toward the halfway line as extra time approaches. His head is down. His hand is inside his suit jacket pocket. His entire body language is that of a man who's just watched his best-laid plan get overturned by 10 seconds of concentration. Real Madrid, from that corner onward, do not just win. They obliterate. Bale scores in extra time. Marcelo makes it 3-1. Cristiano Ronaldo converts a penalty in the very last minute of the game to make it 4-1. The final scoreline, a 4-goal margin, does not reflect anything about how the match had actually gone. It reflects the psychological collapse of a team that had held a Champions League final for 89 minutes and lost it in the 93rd. La Decima was won. And that goal, that single Sergio Ramos header in the 93rd minute, did not just win Real Madrid a trophy. It ignited the greatest sustained period of European dominance in modern football. Real Madrid would go on to win 5 of the next 9 Champions League titles. And every single one of those trophies has its emotional root in that 93rd minute in Lisbon. 7 comebacks, 7 scoreboards that lied, 7 nights where the losing team, at some point in the second half, made a rational decision to protect what they had and lost everything as a result. If you take one thing away from this video, take that. The moment a football team stops trying to win and starts trying to not lose, they have already lost. The scoreboard is never the final word. Now, the question I want to hear from you in the comments. Which of these 7 comebacks hit you the hardest when happened live? Not the best one tactically, the one that made you feel something you still remember. Because that is the answer that separates football fans from football watchers. And I already know from experience that the answer varies wildly. So convince me. Drop your pick in the comments below and defend it. I will be reading through them. If you enjoyed this video, drop a like and subscribe. It genuinely, materially helps this channel keep making this kind of deep dive every single week. If you want more content like this, I have linked another video on your screen right now that is going to hit exactly the same nerve. Watch that one next. Thank you for being here. See you in the next one.